the nice thing about running, it's like a lot of things that you take on in life. You can invest as much as you'd like into it, and the more you invest, probably the more you'll get out of it. 9 times out of 10, that's how it works. So, you know, certainly mechanics are important. How efficient a runner you are can have a huge impact on the end result. That's what's important to you, or even just being able to run more continuously, which is one of your goals as well.
Right.
So completing this 5K, you know, efficiency comes into play a lot. But what I mean by investing is there's a lot of ancillary or supplementary work that you can do in addition to just doing the running that can make you a better runner. There's strength training you can do. There's cardiovascular work that comes in the form of cross training, maybe swimming a little bit or doing the elliptical or a stationary bike. So there's things like that that can complement your running and that are good for the body because they stress and stimulate the cardiovascular system, but they don't have an impact on the lower joints.
Okay.
That can get a little bit banged up from running.
Sure.
Because of the overusage. So there's things like that. You mentioned strength training. You mentioned nutrition is really important. What are you eating? When are you eating it? How are you recovering after the runs? That's really important. Hydrating is incredibly important. And once you go from more of a sedentary lifestyle to an active lifestyle, the amount of intake, whether it's nutrition or hydration, needs to double or triple.
Okay.
And a lot of people underestimate that. And it's hard to determine what kind of positive or negative impact the nutrition and hydration can have on your training. So it's a lot.
I'm seeing that now.
Yeah.
I'm definitely starting to see that.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So it's a lot to take in. One of the things that's really helpful for anybody starting is journal everything.
Okay.
You know, and the reason for that is that most of us getting into running have to self-coach. And we don't necessarily have somebody we can consult with on a regular basis unless you're employing somebody. So keeping a journal, keeping some kind of log that has information about when you're eating, what you're eating, when you're running, how much you're running, not just objective information, but also some subject. How did I feel on the run today? How did that compare with how I remember feeling a week ago doing the same run? That allows us to really see how we're progressing. It's a very great motivator, and it also allows us to, you know, maybe make some tweaks about how we're training ourselves. And do we want to add more? Are we good with where we are? We need a little bit more time at this level. You know, things like that. So a lot of runners just self-coach. Many of us. I coach the track program at Millikin, but I tell my athletes all the time, so much of this is independent. I'm here to work with you and to help mentor you. I'm not out on the 10-mile run that you're doing right now. I can't push you. I can't tell you, hey, you're working at a 7 effort level when I need you at a 9. I can't be there in their ear to tell them that necessarily. Sometimes I can. It's a really cool sport because at the end of the day, it is all on you. And so maybe higher risk, higher reward in some ways. So yeah, that's, you know, some of the basics. But, you know, in terms of building up for a race in August, you're already doing some of the right things. You know, you have to really ease into things. Your body doesn't adapt to a new stimulus like this very quickly. So you have to be patient, which is hard for a lot of people, and you have to take care of yourself too. Some of the things that get really, I guess, trivialized in the process are, besides the nutrition and hydration, are stretching, you know, and loosening the body up, and maybe doing a full warm-up before you get into your run, and getting the body moving so that it's physiologically ready for whatever stimulus you're going to present to it.
What I just did right now, though, that I didn't consider a warm-up, but you may, but that was an actual run for me. What should I have done before?
So somebody who's in a similar position to you, who's getting, you know, is just being introduced to running and is doing sort of a run-walk program to start, just a brisk walk, and there are some calisthenics or kind of drills and things like that that can help, you know, force some blood flow, get yourself ready. It doesn't have to necessarily be a run as a warm-up. That makes sense.
So I should have probably walked it first?
A walk would be good.
Okay,
yeah.
and then okay.
And some of it, you know, some of how you determine how to warm up is based on what have you done that day so far. You know, if you have an office job and you're sitting in this position all day, where the muscles are shortened and they're really getting comfortable in this position, and now you're trying to be tall and elongated and efficiently, the body needs to be primed for that. So you want to consider some of those things in your warm-up.
Should I have stretched at all?
You always want to stretch after the body's had some kind of warm-up.
Afterwards?
Yeah. Okay. So a nice brisk walk for 5 to 10 minutes, and then do some light stretching. You don't want to overdo the stretching. There's this concept now of what we call an active warm-up that incorporates stretching, so that you're not doing what they call static stretching. That actually deactivates muscles. It's bad for them. Much deeper topic that...
Yeah, I may call you later about that.
Yeah. And it's great to have a lot of information. There's a lot of literature out there about for runners, but there's always, like a lot of things in life, there's the tendency or maybe not even tendency, but there's the incentive to be overeducated on something that you're trying to learn by doing. So, you know, don't overanalyze everything about your running. That's just going to make you stressed, and you'll lose your enjoyment in doing it. So, warming up is important, absolutely. Can you do that every time? Some people have time constraints, it's harder. But it is important. Stretching a little bit can help open your range of motion so that you're more fluid as a runner, and you can take advantage of some of the efficiency we were talking about. So
Alright, so now what do I need to work on?
Okay, what did I observe with you running?
What did you observe? Yeah.
So a couple of really important things for runners' mechanics are stride length and cadence. So stride length has to do with how much ground are you eating up with each stride, right?
Right.
How far is your foot extending in front of you and landing? Where is it landing? And then cadence would have to do with the rate of turnover.
Okay.
How quickly you're coming up and putting down your feet. You have a relatively, let's say, a high level of cadence, and your foot strike is, position-wise, it's in a good spot. Basically, what you want for the most efficient foot strike is you want your foot to land directly below your hip. Okay? You have some runners, they'll end up landing just in front of them. It's really inefficient. You're losing power, and you're stressing parts of your body that shouldn't be under stress.
Okay.
So, fortunately for you, you land relatively right under your hip, which is where you want to be. The other thing I noticed about your stride and your foot strike is that you run on your forefoot. You kind of run on your toes a little bit. Has anybody ever told you that before?
Yeah, somebody told me almost like opposite. One foot does one, foot does the other. But if they were both on the toes, okay. So I need to work on landing on my heel.
Not necessarily. You really, some of this is already ingrained in who we are. We've learned it somewhere in our life. You know, you see little kids walking around on their toes, and sometimes they just stay like that. Even as adults, they kind of just land further up. So it's very difficult to transition from forefoot striker to heel striker, or midfoot striker to forefoot striker. You know, that's a long process, and it's not necessarily the best way to go about it.
Okay.
Usually, what you want to do is just go out and try and feel natural doing whatever you're doing.
Okay.
So when I had you run, I said, don't think about anything, just run.
Okay.
And that's usually the most efficient and fluid way to do things. Now, we can make tweaks here and there, but the body doesn't adapt very quickly. So if we had a massive overhaul of things, we would have to take our time to work on it.
So what do you recommend for me to do right now?
Early on, I can show you some drills that you can sort of walk through that are used to enforce better running mechanics. So I can show you some of those that'll help.
Okay.
And
what will it help? The endurance or
the efficiency? The
efficiency. Okay.
The endurance part of it, you just have to go out and run more. And do some of the cross training that I mentioned earlier. Is just think about your heart and lungs. Those are the power center. That's what keeps everything operating.
Okay.
The more you add a stimulus to the heart and lungs, whether it's swimming, whether it's walking a long distance, sometimes doing really long walks can be a great supplement to the running. Doing those things to complement just the running, allows you to develop the cardiovascular and respiratory system, while the connective tissues and muscles are getting a little stronger and a little bit more adapted to the running itself.
Okay. So, but running on my toes, not
I
necessarily bad.
No, I wouldn't change that right now.
Okay.
The thing that you want to think about when you're running is, okay, and this is why journaling is important. Finish your run, and as soon as possible, after you stretch a little bit, take some notes. What feels good, what doesn't feel good? Are my calves tight? Do my quads hurt? Do I feel really tight in my traps or somewhere in my upper body? Take notes of that. All those things are important. One of the things that can be a threat of being forefoot straight on your toes is you overload your calves. So if your calves are constantly tight after a run, that may be something we want to adjust a little
And
bit.
it does. Usually, yeah, my calves are even a long walk.
Okay.
Not even a long walk. Sometimes just a few blocks. That's the first thing that tightens up.
It is. So doing a good warm up and stretching a little bit can help that. But by and large, what we'll probably want to do is, because that's your feedback, it's an unpleasant part of running right now. We want to try and get you landing a little bit more midfoot.
Okay.
And the reason for that is your lower limbs become not only a generator of power, but they're also a shock absorption system. So a lot of what your calves are doing are absorbing shock every time you land and then having to propel you off the ground. The calves are doing too much work. It's only one muscle group.
Okay.
You have your hamstrings, you have your glutes, you have your quads, and you have your core, which is a whole other set of groups of muscles. When you feel a lot of acute stress in one set of muscle groups, it's usually because the other muscle groups aren't doing their share of the work. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, in my experience, people who have a lot of stress in their calves, the problem is, again, if you're landing on your foot, if you go up the chain, the foot lands here, the calf is engaged. It's absorbing shock. It's having to propel forward. The mirror muscle groups of the calf is the quad. So basically, these are the two muscle groups that are being engaged. What's being ignored is the hamstring and the glute, both of which can be shock absorption and power generators. Okay? So some of what I alluded to earlier in terms of the warm-up is we can do some things that are considered like activation drills that can activate, because I use that word loosely, other muscle groups so that once you start running, they turn on and say, oh, I need to be at work too. I need to help the calf out because it's working too hard.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is kind of how we self-analyze, self-coach a little bit, is what feels good, what doesn't feel good. The things that don't feel good, we need to work on a little bit, and we can address specifically. The other things we just keep good maintenance of.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do I need to do for the boots and the...
There's a couple things. I'll show you some basic ones. So as an example, there's something called a lunge matrix. It's really, really helpful.
Lunge what again?
Lunge matrix. So if I'm just standing still, and this is something you can do as part of your warm-up, before or after the walk, it really matters not. I would probably do it after the walk. So what you'll do is you want to keep really good form doing this, is think of yourself as a hand on a clock. We're going to touch on different time periods on the clock as we lunge. So I'm going to start just with my left leg. Okay? What I'm going to do is go straight out. We call it 11 o'clock with my left leg. So we're going to go right out and do a lunge. And we're just going to lower ourselves back up.
Alright.
Yep, go for it.
How far out do I need to go? Does it matter?
That's about good. There you go.
Do you want me to touch?
Yep. Just lightly. The idea is keep your shoulders back. You want all of your weight to go through the heel that's on the ground. So when I come down here, I always tell people running arms. So about 90 degrees like that. Opposite arm.
Opposite arm? Okay.
You just lower your weight through this heel that's out in front of you. Fit up.
Oh, right here. This way.
Try and
do it again.
The muscle that you want activated is here. Mostly. You're going to feel very,
Hurts a
very
little
hot.
bit, but mainly right here.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the opposite leg. So just try and play around with it and adjust accordingly so that you feel it. This is the leg
This is
that
the
we're
leg I
activating.
want to hurt?
Yes, absolutely.
Or whatever. Okay.
Sometimes when you're feeling the opposite leg that's supposed to be at work, it's because it's too tight. So you might need to stretch your quads out a little bit.
Okay. It's okay to do that a little bit before.
Yeah, a little bit. Just light. Don't stand there for 20 minutes going like this because it's just, they've done studies to know that that's not good for you. So just to walk through the rest of the exercise, the lunge matrix is 11, we'll call it like 9 or 10 o'clock. So we go out diagonally, then we go sideways, and then we turn, go backwards. Okay?
You're still using the same feet.
Yeah, so I do a matrix of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I switch legs and do 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. All right.
So what that's doing is getting some of these muscle groups awake, so that once you start going out and doing something active like running and walking, the muscles are alive and they're ready to operate.
Okay. So that would be something good before the run.
Yes.
Okay.
I think walking first and then doing some of these things is helpful.
Okay.
There's some more advanced versions of what we just did that people can try, and
but right now we're still at the beginning stage, so this is
that's
the signal.
Right.
Okay. Make sure the shoulders are back.
Absolutely,
okay.
And that's something. Most of the drills that I would all the drills that I would recommend teach good posture, because we want some translation between the general conditioning we're doing with like a lunge matrix to carry over into our running form.
Okay.
We need good posture as a runner. We need good posture as we're lunging. So anything that we do drill-wise is supposed to carry over into our running form.
All right. That's the main thing I need to focus on. Is there anything else I need to address?
With your running form, your arm carriage is a little bit high. I wouldn't get overly analytical about this. I would just think to yourself, you want to feel as relaxed as possible. Your arms aren't doing the work. They really aren't. What's making contact with the ground and causing you to move forward? It's your legs. So the arms, they have to move because they help dictate the movement of the legs. But you want to try and feel relaxed and then use as little effort as possible with your arms. They're kind of just there for the ride.
Okay.
Now, if you're at the end of a race and you need to try and motivate your legs to go, your arms are there to start working a little harder and send that message. But for the most part, the arms are supposed to be as relaxed as possible. And the working muscles in the legs are where most of that fresh oxygenated blood that's going to allow this movement to happen needs to be sent.
All right.
Anything that you do that is disrupting that is bad. So tight running form with your upper body, that means that fuel isn't going to the legs, or it's being disrupted. It's not as efficient. Letting tension out of your face. Some people really squint their eyes, or they get all tight because they're hurting or they're stressed or whatever it is. It seems like a subtle point, but the stress that comes here and that's in the mind translates through poor, tight mechanics in the body.
I can see that very easily.
So running should be therapeutic, and it's hard because we all have stressful lives and we take some of that into our runs, but it can be a vicious cycle of had a bad day, went into a run stressed, had a bad run, and now I'm in a worse position psychologically than I was.
A run that was supposed to relax you.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe easing into a run or doing a little warm-up routine before you get into the run helps you center yourself, be more relaxed, and try and enjoy it. Running is an interesting thing because in the athletic world, running is the punishment of all other sports. What do you do when you get in trouble? You have to run. But for cross-country and track and field athletes, it's our lifeblood. It's what we do. It's what we love. So finding enjoyment in doing it every day for as much as we do it is really key.
Doing it correctly, that helps a little, and just try to let go of the stress before you hit the ground.
Yeah. Keeping a positive mindset about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you're achieving while you're doing it is really, really important.